the prototype problem. So welcome back guys, hope all is well. Currently, the talk of the town in the Division world at the moment is the coming introduction of the new prototype gear. Now, if you don't know what prototype gear is, it's a new item quality that sits above the existing high-end named and gear set items. There is currently two ways to obtain prototype gear. The first way is to convert your existing gear to prototype gear. However, it must be fully optimized and be at basically level 30 expertise, which is obviously extremely expensive to do before you can convert it to prototype gear. The other way to obtain the gear is pretty simple. You're going to farm for it. Now, there's only one way in which you can actually farm the new prototype gear, and that is currently going to be in the new escalation missions, which are due to be launched in Year 8 Season 1. Now, both of these ways I'm actually pretty okay with. However, if I was a new player or a returning player, I would find both methods really almost impossible to achieve without making the Division my day job for the next 6 months. So, the farming of the prototype gear is where the first problem arises. You see, the drop rates for the prototype gear is either broken or just straight up stupidly low, and I really don't know which one. Over 2 4-hour sessions, 2 clan members and myself both played the hell out of the escalation missions. In total, between us all, we had 12 items drop. So realistically, in 8 hours, we averaged 4 items each. I've spoken to lots of other people and they're finding exactly the same. So the first thing they need to fix is they need to fix the drop rates. They need addressing for when the game mode goes live in Year 8 Season 1. Next up, it seems that even though the missions we played had targeted loot, none of the items that actually dropped were targeted loot. They were just random pieces of gear. Now, the Division 2 has got over 700 gear and weapon items, so if you're a player and you are trying to find something which is specific for your build, and whether it's a weapon or a gear set or a brand set, mask, backpack, chest, it really doesn't matter. Whatever you're looking for is going to be a complete lottery. In fact, your chances of winning the lottery are more than likely better than finding the item that you need through the prototype escalation mission. So, in my opinion, the second thing that they need to fix is they need to fix targeted loot for prototype loot. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be selectable. I'm happy with, in my opinion, with the targeted loot for the mission for that day being as it is, but the prototype stuff that drops in there must be targeted loot for that day, or else it just falls apart. The next problem is the fact that you currently cannot recalibrate or optimize any prototype gear. The problem is compounded by the fact that the drops are low and random, so finding the piece that you want with the exact attributes and talents that you're looking for is going to be incredibly low. There's more chance of a naked lady knocking on my door and offering free blowjobs than finding what you're looking for. But on a side note, if you do live in an area where people do knock on your door offering free blowjobs, let me know, I might need to move house. Now, not being able to recalibrate your gear, I can live with that. I can completely live with that, as long as the gear drops are plentiful from the escalation missions and the targeted loot works. So in my opinion, if you fix the first 2 points that I mentioned, this will fix this point that I've mentioned. Some will be maybe unhappy with that, but the game needs to go back to being a bit of a gear grind again. So it's better to get used to it now instead of getting a bit of a shock when the Division 3 comes back along, because it's all going to be about the gear grind. The next issue is also caused by the issues with the first 2 points that I've mentioned. So prototype gear comes with some mini talents called arguments. Now there's 8 arguments. The same talent can be recalibrated onto all of your gear and weapons, which will stack, so in return giving you a nice increase in power. However, to recalibrate the argument on your prototype gear, you need prototype mats. which you only receive by breaking down unwanted prototype gear. But because the drop tranches are silly low and random, the chances of you being able to obtain enough prototype gear to dismantle this again is very slim. And to make matters worse, every time that you recalibrate your argument, the cost rises, making this feature virtually useless. So in the video I've got over 800 prototype cores. Now you get those by breaking down prototype gear, so that would mean I would need 800 pieces of gear to break down to be able to do what I'm doing now. Now I'm trying to re-roll the argument and I'm trying to get the quantum talent, but as you can see, it just, well, RNG is just not on our side. So to cut a long story short, I'm going to use all 800 of those prototype materials up, and I'm still not going to get the talent that I'm looking for. So you can see how incredibly expensive this gets, and because you just can't get enough prototype gear to break down, this really just becomes impossible. So again, if you fix the first 2 points that are mentioned in this video, then that will fix this issue, because if the gear drops quite plentiful or at a decent rate from the escalation missions, then there's not really going to be that much of a problem with breaking the useless trash down and then using those materials to re-roll your arguments. Now let's talk god rolls. Now when you convert an existing piece of gear to a prototype, you're guaranteed that one stat will be maxed out. However, the chances of the second attribute being maxed out is only 5%, and the chances of the third attribute is as low as 0.3%. This seems like quite low to me, considering the player has farmed the gear, recalibrated it, optimized it, they've done the whole gear grind to level 30 proficiency, and they've spent a ton of materials to make it expertise 30. Now, I understand that the other attributes, when you recalibrate it, cannot be lower than what your current maximum stat is on that gear, but that's still a lot of work to only gain a few percentage points of crit chance or weapon damage. The fact that there's also no middle ground to the stat, it's either a max stat or it's at its lowest possible when it's converted, is a bad design. Now let's take weapon damage, like a weapon damage roll. It's normally 15% when it's maxed out, and if you convert it to prototype gear, it's either going to stay at 15% or it's going to go to 22.5%. There's actually nothing in between, which I find like a little bit odd. Obviously other prototype gear that you farm has random rolls, so it only affects really the converted items. So unconverted items, why not have the existing stat as the lowest possible base stats, and then have all the other attributes be randomly higher, instead of the current system, which is almost like you either on 0% or you're on 100%, and there's really nothing in between. So there's my 2 penneth on prototype gear. I'm sure there's an absolute shitload of other valid points and things that I've just completely not thought about. So please drop your thoughts in the comment section. I look forward to reading them. You know, it certainly is a polarizing subject, and it's certainly something which I definitely think there'll be a lot of changes made before the new season starts. But until next time, guys, bye bye now.